charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, trafficking, interstate transportation.
The FBI made their first move in what is shaping up to be one of the most shocking investigations into abuse and power dynamics in entertainment history. For years, whispers of decadence and darkness have surrounded Sean "Diddy" Combs and his exclusive freak-off parties. Those whispers, once dismissed as baseless gossip, have now roared into the public consciousness with the recent arrest of a key individual allegedly tied to Diddy and his network. This arrest is not just about Diddy, although his name has been circulating in connection with these allegations for years. It's a thread in a much larger tapestry of exploitation that ties the entertainment world to the fashion industry, and all signs point to a chillingly familiar set of patterns. Disgraced Abercrombie Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries and his partner Matthew Smith are also under the microscope, accused of running a predatory operation under the guise of talent scouting. The connection between these two cases goes deeper than coincidence. It speaks to a broader culture of systemic exploitation that has thrived in these industries for decades. Diddy's infamous parties have long been veiled in controversy. Reports from attendees suggest that these gatherings were more than just extravagant social events. They were described as places where power dynamics were starkly apparent, with guests required to adhere to strict confidentiality agreements that prevented them from discussing anything they saw or experienced. While the parties were advertised as exclusive and glamorous, darker allegations often surfaced from those who attended. Some described an environment where vulnerable individuals were manipulated, coerced, or otherwise exploited. The power imbalance was glaring, and the N.D.A's ensured that any who wanted to speak out were silenced before they even had the chance. The recent FBI arrest suggests that these allegations may have been more than just rumors. Sources close to the investigation suggest that the individual in custody could provide vital information about a broader network of exploitation that includes figures from both the entertainment and fashion industries. And this is where Mike Jeffries and Matthew Smith come into the picture. Known for their reign over Abercrombie Fitch during its peak years, Jeffries and Smith are now at the center of a federal investigation into human trafficking and exploitation, allegedly using their status and wealth to lure and manipulate young, vulnerable individuals. How did Jeffries and Smith operate? Reports indicate that middleman James Jacobson acted as a scout, targeting aspiring models and young professionals who dreamed of breaking into the fashion industry. These individuals were promised life-changing opportunities, exclusive contracts, and access to a glamorous world they had long admired from afar. Instead, they found themselves ensnared in a calculated trap. Victims were flown to remote, private locations where the realities of their situation began to set in. These tryouts, as Jeffries and Smith reportedly called them, were nothing short of exploitation. Victims described coercive situations where they felt pressured to comply out of fear or desperation. What's more, N.D.A's were reportedly a standard part of the process. Victims were required to sign them before they even set foot in these locations, effectively silencing them before any exploitation took place. This ensured that even if individuals wanted to speak out later, they faced significant legal and financial barriers. This pattern of control and manipulation is alarmingly similar to the allegations tied to Diddy's parties, suggesting that these aren't isolated incidents but rather part of a larger culture of abuse in high-powered industries. The bravery of victims coming forward has been instrumental in bringing these operations to light. David Bradbury, a former model, was one of the first to publicly share his experiences with Jeffries and Smith. In his testimony, Bradbury recounted how he was lured into their circle with promises of professional success. Instead, he found himself in a situation where he felt powerless, manipulated, and unable to leave. His courage inspired others to step forward, providing investigators with the evidence needed to pursue charges against Jeffries, Smith, and their associates. Bradbury's story is not unique. More victims have come forward with strikingly similar accounts, describing how they were recruited, isolated, and exploited. These testimonies have revealed the lengths to which Jeffries and Smith went to maintain control over their victims, using wealth, status, and legal intimidation to silence dissent. The details are chilling, painting a picture of two men who used their influence not to empower others but to prey on the vulnerable. The parallels between Jeffries' operation and the allegations against Diddy are undeniable. Both cases reveal a reliance on secrecy, exclusivity, and the promise of success to lure victims into precarious situations. In both industries, the power dynamics are stark, with gatekeepers controlling access to opportunity and using that control to exploit others. For decades, the fashion and entertainment worlds have operated as bastions of privilege, where those at the top could act with impunity while those at the bottom faced unimaginable consequences for speaking out. The recent arrest and ongoing investigations have brought these issues into the spotlight, but they also raise important questions about systemic change. These cases are not just about individual bad actors, they're about a culture that has allowed such abuses to thrive for decades. From Hollywood casting couches to predatory modeling contracts, these industries have long been criticized for their exploitative practices. However, accountability has been rare, and structural change even rarer. Will the elites manipulate the intelligence and get away from these allegations? The public response to these revelations has been one of shock and outrage, but also a growing demand for accountability. Protests and calls for industry reform are gaining momentum, fueled by the bravery of victims who have refused to stay silent. These individuals are not only seeking justice for themselves, but are also shining a light on the systems that allowed these abuses to occur. Their voices are a reminder that change is possible, but only if society is willing to confront the uncomfortable truths about how power is wielded in these industries. The connections between fashion and entertainment are deep, and the patterns of abuse are alarmingly consistent. Both industries thrive on glamour and exclusivity, creating environments where exploitation can easily be hidden. The powerful wield their influence to protect themselves, often at the expense of those who lack the resources to fight back. This culture of impunity is what allows operations like those allegedly run by Jeffries, Smith, and their associates to continue for years without detection. The arrests and investigations mark a potential turning point. They signal that the days of unchecked abuse may be coming to an end, as victims find the courage to speak out and demand justice. However, the road to systemic change is long and difficult. It requires not only holding individuals accountable but also dismantling the structures that enable such abuses to persist. This includes creating safer environments for victims to come forward, implementing stricter oversight in industries where power imbalances are prevalent, and challenging the cultural norms that have normalized exploitation for so long. As the investigation into Diddy, Jeffries, and Smith continues, more names and details are likely to emerge. This moment is an opportunity to expose the full extent of these networks and ensure that those responsible are held accountable. But it's also a chance to confront the deeper issues at play, the power dynamics, secrecy, and privilege that have allowed these abuses to go unchecked. The courage of victims and the diligence of investigators are already shining a light on these dark corners, but true change will require collective action and a commitment to justice. These revelations are more than just headlines, they're a wake-up call. They challenge us to look beyond the glamour of these industries and confront the exploitation that has long been hidden beneath the surface. For those who have suffered in silence, this moment represents a chance for justice and healing. For society as a whole, it's a reminder of the importance of accountability, transparency, and the fight against systemic abuse. What are your thoughts on these events? Drop down in the comments and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe for more relevant content.